Hey everyone, it's Shawn. Welcome to another edition of the Journey to CEO show. Today we're going to be talking about where to focus in business. This can be critical, right? That you have key assets, you have key signature items, you have key pieces of your branding. But the problem is there's all these important things going on around your business. And we, as the business owner, the business leader, or the advocate, all this stuff applies to nonprofits as well. We need to figure out where to focus. We can't focus on everything at the same time. So that where to focus becomes such a critical point to your business success and to your future development. Joining me, as usual, Dr. Ann Gaddy, co-author of our recent book, Redirection. She's also a co-author of our upcoming book, Journey to CEO. Welcome, Dr. Ann.
It's great to be here. I have a dog with me as well, but
always enjoy this. We got some live viewers tuning in. So if you're viewing live, don't be shy. Go ahead and drop some comments. I know a lot of you just lurk and watch. Let us know where you're watching from. Also, let us know what questions you have about your journey to CEO. We'll try to cover them either in today's show or in an upcoming show. Dr. Ann, so today we want to talk about where to focus. I think this is probably a big issue for a lot of businesses.
Yeah, this is a time when, to survive, first we're trying to survive, then we're trying to thrive. So looking at assets, we look at key partnerships. Who are you partnering with? Are there people that you can work with? Vendors that you work with, key activities that you're doing, key resources that you have at your disposal, and then cutting what costs can you cut if you are finding yourself bleeding money or, in the red. So really the partnership end of things can be very, very helpful if you are networking and let's say you're an accountant and you can refer some of your clients over to business development people, or, you can start to do partnerships with other people that may provide you some of the products that you then repackage or you distribute or you use to make other products. So that it's just important to know who are your key partners, who are the people you really need to work with and ask for help. That's the thing too, that's important. If you have vendors that have certain timeframes for payment and you're finding yourself struggling, reach out and ask them, hey, how can we do something on a different pay scale? Just because they want to keep your business, you want to keep working with them. So key partnerships is one of the beginning things to look at.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of partnerships, and actually it was interesting. I did record a show earlier today, and some people may have saw it live, but it's out there, Rapping with Dr. Jacqueline, and we were talking about a lot of things. But one thing we got into was partnerships and how important it is to set the ground rules of the partnerships, and people don't do that. And part of that is what you're saying here too. If you have a business partnership, things change. Go back to the drawing board, have a new conversation.
Right. Things. And then the other thing is, as you're doing in the world, the work is changing so drastically. We have a lot of people that are working remotely now. And so you get these hybrid kind of business structures going on. So the key activities, what is it that you really, really need to focus your time on? That is your high productivity items, use of your time. So that's where you want to spend your time. And also one of the key activities that is often overlooked but really needs some attention is your communication strategies. So how you communicate with people right now to keep everybody in the loop, even if you're working with teams and such. How, what are those activities and how can you streamline those activities so you can make decisions faster? You can provide information to your clients or your products to your clients quicker, because speed is a premium right now.
Oh, speed seems to be such a critical piece of this. Well, not only is speed a premium in, running whatever service or product you have in your business, right? People typically want very fast turnarounds these days, but also the speed of information coming into us, the speed of change, right? As we watch the economic stimulus packages, the bailout packages, and then, the lockdown changes, the regulatory changes, change.
We've got a whole chapter in our Entrepreneur to CEO just on change, because it's such an important aspect.
That's happening regularly, right? So we all got to figure out how to deal with it. But I think this points to companies, us as business owners, we need to have regular revisits to our strategic process because the rules might change. Not only does the marketplace change now, but the rules are changing. So we got an extra X factor that normally is not moving quite as fast as it is.
Well, and the HR rules, the regulations for HR are changing daily, so how you take care of your employees is changing. And you can be out of compliance very quickly if you're not careful. So yes, definitely check your rules on how you're working.
Right. And so, I mean, actually, oddly enough, I got a notice here. I'm my office is in Florida, and Florida unemployment tax. They sent me a notice April 20th saying we're changing your tax rate and your tax payments due April 30th, but we don't know what your due tax rate is yet. So, we're still computing it. So, businesses are dealing with all of that right now. And all that points to you got to step back, right? You get new tax rates, you get new regulations. You got to say, hey, does my strategy still work? Do I have the right staffing levels? Do I need to move staffing? Kroger upset a lot of people, but they closed some of their operations in California because they weren't happy with the regulatory environment. I mean, that's a tough decision, but if it pushes you from profitability to unprofitable, you may have to make hard decisions.
Well, and that's one of the things too, that's cutting your costs, that you really, if it's not working, it may mean that you have to cut one revenue stream or cut something that you used to be doing and pivot to another. And that's where we get into the agile organization, which of course we've talked about before, that you need to be able to make decisions quickly. You may need to pivot, and that brings me to understanding your key resources. What is it that you have? Is it people? Is it technology? Is it patents? What is it that you have that is important for you to either keep doing, keep using, exploiting, or shift into another direction?
Yeah, and I think one of the hardest parts here, and maybe develop this a little bit, Dr. Anders, for the typical business owner, is where do you focus next, right? I mean, there are so many things changing. There's so many opportunities. How do you figure out where to focus with all these different key aspects? How do you pick which ones to move to the top of the chart?
I think that it's really, you do have to go back to your business model and just say, here are the main functions. Here's our North Star. Here's our purpose, and make certain that everybody knows what that purpose is, so that then okay, how are we going to get there? And you may find that you're getting there in a very different way. But if that's what, that you've decided that purpose is still relevant, then you make sure that you have the right people, you have the right resources, networking, and really, I think that we're seeing, as far as resources is concerned, that you might have to really start to be more regional in your way in which you're getting your goods and services, because, the supply chain is so important.
Yes.
But it can be broken. And what we like to do, you and I have talked about this, is have 2 or 3 different options for supply chains. But the closer you can keep things, the better, the more.
The less can happen. Exactly. Less can happen in the middle. And while you're talking, I was thinking a little bit, we've talked about the book Traction a couple of times. I think it's got some good points to it. Gino Wickman's EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System. But I think one of the things we can take away from Traction definitely is good is he talks about having 1 or 2 rocks, right? You only have 1 or 2 things you're working on at a given time.
Right.
And the challenge, I think, for most businesses is to narrow your focus to 1 or 2 things. Like, what am I working on? Let me get hyper focused on that, and let the other stuff, do what you have to do, but basically put your main attention on a handful of things.
Yeah, I do think that sometimes the mistakes that entrepreneurs make is that they'll try and start up too many revenue streams at one time rather than getting one solid. And so this is my one trick pony. This is what I do. And then once you can get that automated, you can start introducing other revenue streams that are adjacent to what you're already doing. So you want to stay with that brand, that purpose, so people recognize you for what you're doing. And and that becomes something that can grow.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, people will say diversify, multiple revenue streams, don't put all your eggs in one basket. And that's great advice, especially as your company matures. But you're absolutely right. If you're in the entrepreneurial stage and you're still testing things and trying new things, find something that works and get it working good, and then move to the next thing. And I think I do think a lot of people make that mistake, right? They get the engine starting to putter, and then they're on to something else rather than saying,
because they can't attend to it. And the other thing is, as an entrepreneur, as you're beginning to build your business, you're doing a lot of things. You have an org chart, but your name is on all of the different functions and tasks. So you have to figure out, again, with your key resources, how you're starting to add people to your business. What is the sequence you're going to use? What are you outsourcing? Or what are you, how are you hiring? What's your pattern?
Yeah, exactly. And so that's one of the key functions that I think for a lot of companies right now, human resources kind of moved up the chain, right? I mean, it's always important. Our people are critical in getting business done, but with such a changing environment, people working from home, the regulations changing, HR for many companies just kind of shot to the top. We got to figure out how to keep everybody working.
Well, came from the C-suite, really. And I now see more executive vice presidents that are HR. It was sort of just the benefits package, but now it's a strategy. You need to use your HR, that whole resource, human resource department becomes your it's very strategic because it's talent management.
Exactly. And you're not managing them the same way you used to either, right? I mean, it's no longer just everybody shows up at the office. You say, hey, let's go to the conference room and have a meeting. And then recently somebody was talking about teamwork events, right? You can't even do teamwork events like you used to, right? You can't get everybody together around the water cooler to chat. So you've got new challenges.
Right.
That's probably one of the most changed parts of your entire business.
Right. And so when we talk about resources, your culture is a resource, and so how are you building that culture? How are you doing it if you're hybrid, and people are not even in the same building? That kind of thing becomes something that you have to intentionally have communication strategies that allow people to feel like they belong.
Right, exactly. So talk about that a little bit. I mean, how do we, and I think we talked about this in one of our recent shows, folks. You can go back and check it. The junior employees, you got to bring them online. You got to make them feel included. How do you do that on a broader sense, with a company, now that a lot of people are working remote, and even if they aren't working remote, they're working maybe limited schedules in person. How do you keep everybody feeling connected?
I think that you have to have some type of platform, whether it's Slack or something else. You've got to have some way that you can easily communicate back and forth, and you can have different conversations going on so that people have a way in which they can stay connected with what's going on. I think you have to be intentional at keeping people updated on what's happening in the office, or what, if things are going well, here's what's happening. If things are not going well, here's what's happening. So I think it's really allowing more of an open door. I mean, you can't manage by walking around as much because there's nobody in the office, but you can make it intentional that you are checking in, not micromanaging, but you're at least checking in with them and seeing how they're doing. What do they need? How can we assist you? Those kind of things become conversations that need to be had.
And one thing that came up a lot in the time management consulting that Shannon, Greg, and I have done is, frequently supervisors, lament that employees are constantly knocking on their door, popping their head in, and we work with a lot of them and got them to test out doing office hours and only being available, a certain percentage of the time. And that worked tremendously for a lot of supervisors. Now I imagine a lot of them are having the opposite problem, which is, everybody's just disappeared. Everybody's at their house typing away, doing their thing, whatever. You don't know what your employees are doing and what they aren't doing. And there is no way for them just to say, hey, boss, I have a quick question, or can we talk about the Jones file or whatever.
Well, that's why some of these programs like Slack really allow you to do that. I mean, because I can see down there, I see if it lights up that somebody's asking something that I can check on.
You got to build that channel. Otherwise, you don't have it, right? So if you don't think about it.
Right. That's why technology becomes so important, because you got to keep up with technology. And I do say that it's better to update and upgrade so that on a regular basis, so that it's incremental and you're not finding yourself all of a sudden having to redo everything, because you're far behind.
Oh yeah, I remember working at a company one time on a project, and the legacy systems had gotten so old that they couldn't even move it forward to a modern system, and they had to run two systems in parallel for a while until they got the old system shut down and a new system up and running. And so,
and that's a lot of work, because people are doing double work. I've just had it with another organization that went over, and they had this obsolete program they were doing for bookkeeping and for their just all their financial records, and they were going over to QuickBooks. And I mean, they literally went a year doing two systems. So it's a lot.
It's a lot to ask. But you got to, all of this is pointing to the fact you got to attach the system and your culture. And I think, not every business is making that full connection. Which systems you use right now will ultimately drive your culture, right? I mean, do you have something like Slack where you can have some informal back channels where people can communicate with each other, ask small questions? Or are you making everybody go through email and schedule calls, in which case you're becoming a much more formal organization without even thinking about it, right? A lot of this is happening unconsciously as an accident because of whatever technology you have implemented.
Right. And I know that, video chats are very popular right now, and they're going to be expanding those and how they work and what their capabilities are. So it's just one of those things that I say every year you need to analyze what you're using and make sure, do you need to, if you need to make changes, that you've thought that through. But that, again, those are resources. Those are things that, key partnerships, key activities, key resources. What is it and then costs. How much does it really cost you to run your business? And people aren't always, they leave stuff out that they, don't think about the cost of a telephone, the cost of your computers, the cost of driving, the cost of using some different machinery. All of those things need to be in there.
Yeah, exactly. And now's the time to reevaluate, because you probably have stuff that you're using less than you used before, and you're using more than you didn't before, right? So you probably got some overlapping costs. I mean, are you, I've seen instances. I mean, do you have software sitting on computers that you're not even using, and you're paying the monthly license fees, and the computer is just, sitting at the office while the employee's working from home?
And that's another thing that you bring up, because if you have automatic payments, you may not even think about it. And so you may have some programs that you're still paying for because you didn't think to take them off your credit card.
Yes.
So,
well, a sneaky little
membership that you're not using anymore, maybe you ought to take the automatic payment off.
Yeah. And a pet peeve of mine on some of these software companies, not all of them, but some of them, they go back and they will ding your credit card for the annual fee before they tell you that you're renewing, right? You just get an email like, oh, you just renewed for another year. We billed your credit card $500 or whatever. And so some of them are better about communicating than others. So you may want to go back and look at bills from a year ago, 11 months ago, and see if you got a recurring bill coming for something you don't need anymore.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I would look at that. And I also would look at your email programs, your, whatever you're using, your CRMs, all of those kind of things. Just check, because the faster you can turn things around, the faster you can get the task done. I know that we want to be effective too, but obviously, but speed is the number one thing that is, people want convenience. They want things now.
Yeah, they do. And we've got to do our part to get them what they need when they need it. So, let's focus in a little bit on speed. I think you said you saw a McKinsey study saying a lot of companies are struggling with speed.
They said that that's their number one priority is speed. And the number two most important factor is customer service. And number three is cost reduction. Yeah. So it is important because you've got things like Amazon. You've got companies that can deliver stuff to you tomorrow.
Yeah.
And you don't want to go out, as much with COVID and such. So now, you have this. Oh, this is my other dog.
Hello.
Blondie. I have Great Danes. So speed is very, very important. And that means that what is the turnaround that your employees are working? How can they produce quicker and still stay accurate, still stay with this level of quality? Well, but it's important.
And speed is often hard on humans too, right? I mean, we talk about Amazon, but Amazon is known for being somewhat tough on its employees, right? I mean, so we need to think about how to balance that as well, right? Particularly if you're in a, creative type business, customized business, consulting, et cetera. You don't want to necessarily be getting your employees in the, produce the reports as fast as you can or send out the client proposals as fast as you can, because there needs to be a creative side to it. So we got to be careful that we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater as we're trying to speed things up, right? We may lose our secret sauce in our business because we're trying to do what everybody else is doing.
Right. And if it is customized, then you do need to be very careful. And people will pay for that, and that's another thing too, is, as you're checking all your key resources, key partnerships, key activities, what's your pricing, and make sure your model is still effective. Are your margins still where you want them to be? Or are you finding that you're having trouble because you can't get the parts? And so now you've got things are more expensive, which we find with technology, with computers and such. They're more expensive right now because of COVID.
There are shortages. Yeah, things are not flowing the way before, which means particularly if you're a manufacturer. I mean, if you're assembling from multiple sources, you got to evaluate that. Can you get all the parts? Can you do a design change?
Right.
Find other vendors. I mean, you really got to think all the way through where you're at. Just, adding some more money for a cost increase is not really going to be a sufficient solution.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So we talk in our book about a redirection we have some bunch of exercises about really examining your business, and I want to encourage people to check that out. It's live on the Kindle store on Amazon. It's called Redirection with me, Shawn McBride, and Dr. Ann Gaddy. And really we talk about redirecting your business. And I think this is kind of one of those exercises where you run through, does my brand still work? Do I still make sense in this current market?
Yep. Yeah, I think it's always important for companies to take their organization and see how it works in this market as opposed to where it was before COVID. And it's important that you look at different scenarios for your business, that you look at the best scenario, sort of if we just are getting by, and the worst scenario, so that you are ready for whatever scenario actually occurs.
Yeah, and file those plans away. I think that's where a lot of companies miss out, right? You run yourself through the planning exercises, then you keep your notes. And if something shifts, what a lot of companies did with the pandemic, and it's amazing advice, is then you go back to these planning and what if scenarios you had, and you use them for thoughts and inspiration so you move faster through the planning cycles when unexpected things happen.
Right. And we talked about the iterative approach where you are prototyping, testing, learning from it, and making any kind of improvements or modifications you need to have. And I think that was probably what in our last segment, we did something about that. And I think that that's an important thing that we have to stress, is that this is not a situation where you can just say, here's my plan and I'm just going to execute it, because we are not in a stable environment.
We are not in a stable environment. We really have to have dynamic plans. We really have to be ready for contingencies.
Right.
So folks, we want to encourage you to check out our book. And also I'm going to drop up here the website address. So just go to planningdoneright.com and get on our email list. And then that will allow you to get updates from us about these shows, about tips, tricks, upcoming books, etc. So go check that out. Dr. Ann, another great show. Hope our audience members pat themselves on the back
Just
for doing
a few nuggets to keep them moving forward, and we're always going forward.
Yeah, and when you're on our email list, you'll see updates on when these shows are coming out. So we generally do them on Wednesdays, but we move them around a little bit, testing different times, serving you, the audience. Let us know what time's best for you in the comments. But we'll be back with you again with more tips, and hope you check out our book and join one of our communities where we can all work together to build the future. So, Dr. Ann, I'll catch you soon.
Thanks.